Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And this is The Ultimate Fighter Season 27, the Battle of the Undefeated, Miocic vs. Cormier, Episode 1, Reaction and Recap. This was a fun episode, man. I actually enjoyed it, and I actually expect the season to get better and better as time goes on. As one of the fighters were saying, they made a good point during the episode, which we'll get into. But with that being said, I'm just going to start at the beginning of the episode and work, I took notes during the episode and just go off memory. I just watched it. It was a fun episode, great fight. I mean, there's not a lot of, the last season was actually Gaethje versus Alvarez. I missed that season. But before that, it was Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw, which was a great season. I mean, that one, I really wanted to watch that season for multiple reasons. It was guys returning. It was like redemption. So there was not only a good reason to watch the fighters, but also the coaches had a rivalry going into it that's like, yo, I gotta watch this. Now, Alvarez, it was just introducing the new women's strawweight division, so it wasn't like a lot of fighters you knew, UFC veterans, anything like that, or, people from previous tough seasons like Redemption. And then there wasn't really any rivalry with the coaches. With Alvarez and Gaethje, it was going to be a great fight, which I definitely planned on watching, but it didn't really appeal me to watch that season. Well, this season is the Battle of the Undefeateds. Every single fighter on this roster is undefeated as far as the professional career is concerned, and so now it's like every single episode you're seeing someone lose their O, which is pretty dope. And on top of that, so it makes you really want to watch the fights. On top of that, we're going to see a champion versus champion super fight at the end of this, and Daniel Cormier is also a very fun guy, in my opinion, as far as his personality. He's got a sense of humor. He's a funny dude, but he's also, gets pretty testy at times. So I think Daniel Cormier, on top of the fights being interesting, I think Daniel Cormier makes me want to watch it as far as the coaches are concerned. Also get to know a little more about Stipe, Stone Cold Stipe. You don't see too much from him. I don't expect a lot from him on this season. I don't expect him and DC to get in any fights or anything crazy like that, or any crazy trash talk from Stipe. But at the same time, I do expect DC to give him a couple little playful jabs and stuff like that. So with that being said, I'm gonna watch this season. That's why. And let's start with this episode, season 1 or episode 1, which I actually thought was a good episode. So the beginning. When the coaches arrived, the fighters were already in the house, and like the fighters, when they first saw Daniel Cormier and Stipe, they legit couldn't believe, like, yo, this is DC and Stipe, what up, dog? Like, it was kind of like how I was when I interviewed like somebody. You're like, what? I'm fucking talking to. Well, you can just get that moment, like, especially if you're a fighter. And you watch the UFC, you're fighting in maybe a local promotion or some other promotion. You've been dreaming about the UFC, and then the fucking champions, the heavyweight and light heavyweight champion, you can imagine it. So these guys were like legit hyped to meet DC and Stipe. Like, yo, like fanning out a little bit, which you could expect. So Daniel Cormier ended up winning the coin flip, which means he either got to choose between first pick or choosing the first fight, like being the matchmaker for the first episode. And he chose first pick between all the fighters. So what that means, Stipe will get to be the matchmaker for the first episode. So Daniel Cormier got a fun-looking guy for the very first. Actually, it wasn't his first pick, but it's the guy. Actually, I'll show you right here. This guy was fun, and I actually liked what he had to say. He called himself the Violent Bob Ross. I'll circle him. Actually, if I can get over here. Yeah, this guy. He said, he really wants to be a breakout star this episode. My allergies are coming. Excuse me. I'll just wait too. I feel like I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me, guys. But yeah, so this guy right here, you can see, he's got the, like, he looks like he might be albino or something. He's got the fro, and he's like, he calls himself the Violent Bob Ross, but he really wants to be a star. And with the look and the Violent Bob Ross thing, I was like, yo, this dude's already super interesting. So I'm looking forward to see what he has to bring. But yeah, that's one of the guys that's, had one of the little cut scenes in the first episode. That's what he had to say. So I thought that was interesting. And then as well, on another one of the cutscenes, which is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, they were saying, you know, since all of these guys are undefeated, there's not going to be a lot of drama in the beginning. Like, someone can't say, yeah, but you lost to some scrub over there, or you lost to this guy, or that you've got 3 losses already, you're 500, like, what are you talking about? Because everyone's undefeated, so there's not really too much trash you can talk about another undefeated fighter. But he did say, as the season goes on and fighters start to lose, you know, they get their first losses and they start to be, you know, stuff like that, more stuff's gonna happen. He predicts more drama will come, like, yo. And that was a good point, which is why I said earlier I expect the season to get better and better, even though this was a good episode. So with that being said, DC picked the Violent Bob Ross. They did their picking. The very last pick I noted was a guy, his name was Dulaney Perry, and he had on like a bandana and some glasses. I think he went to Team Miocic. I think it was this guy right here. He was the very last pick, and you know, that was just interesting. It's interesting to see who the last pick is always, you know what I'm saying? But to see how they do in the season. They have their back against the wall or whatever, so. And his look was a little interesting. You know, he was just standing there kind of standoffish, bandana on, glasses like Kevin Lee or something, like, you know, those style of glasses. I don't know, it was interesting, and he was the last pick. So I just thought I would bring that up. So with that being said, the picks were over. The first fight, Miocic is the matchmaker, so he picked the matchup. He picked his guy. You see over here with the mustache, his name is John Gunter, and he picked against DC's guy, who is Joe Giannetti. So that's the fight Stipe's team picked. Ends up being a great fight. 1 second, I'm gonna pause real fast because my allergies are coming in and I gotta go blow my nose. BRB. Alright, excuse me. Alright, so I'm back. So yeah, the fight is between Joe Giannetti and John Gunter. DC's confident though, even though DC made the match, he's like, yo, I really feel like my guy Joe Giannetti might be UFC ready now. With that being said, I believe both of these guys were the number 2 picks, so they're pretty high level guys on, you know, as far as the coaches' ratings are concerned. They picked them pretty high. Now, with that being said, the episode continues, and you know, it tells you a little bit about each fighter. John Gunter, he's a dude that you see on Stipe Miocic's team. He's got that fun little mustache, you know what I'm saying, and it talks about how he's a alpaca shearer. So he shears alpacas for a living. If you don't know what an alpaca is, it's like a goat type thing, you know what I'm saying, like a llama type thing. He ends up fucking wrestling them down. It looked like he did a little dental work on them things. He was, you know, shears them, stuff like that. Pretty unique character. He really reminds me of like, what's that guy's name? Toothless Tom Galicchio from season 25. You know, unique character, fun guy. Kind of want to root for him. So yeah, that's that guy. He had a pretty, you know, unique upbringing. I think he said his family let him, like, he had like 10 brothers and sisters, or 9 counting him. 10 total, and 9 brothers and sisters. And he's talking like, I think his family let him drop out of school earlier on, like maybe freshman year, 8th grade, to work and do what he wanted to do. Ended up being an alpaca shearer and a fighter. So yeah, that's the guy who's going to be fighting for Miocic's team on the first fight. And as far as Joe Giannetti is concerned, Joe Giannetti is DC's fighter. He's a well-rounded guy. He's also 6-0. Both of these fighters were 6-0 going into the fight. And to train for this guy's upcoming fight, it shows a little how, you know, DC's coaching. It looked like great practice, because he had Cain Velasquez and himself, Daniel Cormier, you know, the former heavyweight and light heavyweight champion, like drilling, grinding against Joe Giannetti, to the point where he was like, yo, I can't keep doing this almost. It looked like he was done, having Cain Velasquez and Miocic just charging at him and grinding at him against the fence. Like, you know, showed at the very end of the workout, he was like, yo, that's crazy. But he was training with some real big dudes, preparing for a guy who they, you know, was a great ground and pound style of fighter who might be going for the takedown. But if you're going against a guy your weight, these guys are 155 pounds that we're talking about right now. You've been training fucking takedown defense against Daniel Cormier, probably going to be pretty ready, man. So that's how this fight, they were planning it. Even though Joe Giannetti was well-rounded, you know, they were preparing for Gunter to be trying to take him down. So with that being said, they also told a little bit about Giannetti. He told about his story. He said it's just him, his father, and his sister after his mom bounced when he was like 12. So he's really trying to win this fight, pay back his dad for everything. You know, they've been poor and stuff like that. Lived out of a car, no heat and stuff. So he really wants to win this fight, capitalize on this opportunity and be able to pay his dad back and become a UFC fighter and you know, realize his dream. So that was super dope. Kind of, you know, that made me want to root for him. So I kind of was rooting for both of these guys, which set up a good fight. They both had cool stories, seemed like cool dudes. They're, you know, it's DC versus Miocic. I mean, they're both undefeated. I was down for the fight. I was ready for the fight, and it told a little bit about both guys in episode 1. With that being said, it showed a little bit about one of John Gunter's previous fights. It was like a fight of the night, comeback of the year type thing, man. John Gunter, the dude with the mustache on the blue team over here, he was getting tore up by this black dude, and it was like on Flow Combat. It didn't say the promotion, but the dude landed like 3 knees to the face. He was landing some shots. They were like, oh god, this fight's about to be stopped. What is going on? Is this dude about to stop the fight? John Gunter was kind of, you know, getting crashed a little bit, but John Gunter recovered and got a takedown and got the ground and pound win. So he came back and remained undefeated. So he was in a war and showed his resilience and his toughness in that fight and his ability to come back. And so that's, you know, that's it. That was just building up this fight even more. You saw one of his fights and stuff like that. So it was going to be those two guys going at it. Had to tell the tape. John Gunter was 32 years old. Joe Giannetti's only 22 years old. They're both fighting at lightweight, 155 pounds. They're both 6-0, about the same height. Gunter weighed about a pound less, 154.75. Joe Giannetti, 155.5. So, you know, a little bit heavier, not much. Either way, they were pretty even except for age. With that being said, though, the fight started, and it was a fucking great fight for Joe Giannetti for the time that it lasted. John Gunter stormed in, you know what I'm saying? We expected him to be trying to go for a takedown, maybe pressure Giannetti, which is what he did. Came in, stormed in, but Giannetti landed some big shots, a couple big knees, but John Gunter went to go for a takedown and drive him against the fence, and immediately Joe Giannetti snatched the guillotine, and it was in. Boom, had it in, fucking fell forward. Gunter did, and he was out asleep. The fight lasted maybe 20-30 seconds. Joe Giannetti put John Gunter to sleep with a submission. Herb Dean was the referee, and then that was pretty much the end of the episode, except for you know, they had to pick the next fights, also talk a little bit about the fight. But man, right after the fight, DC was super excited, like a proud coach, like, that's my boy, with the cheesy smile on his face, like, you did it, you know, like he was excited, he got a W. That's part of like the epic, like you can tell DC, he's competitive. So even if he's on The Ultimate Fighter against a friendly Stone Cold Stipe dude he don't got no problems with, he's gonna be, hey, we're up 1-0. What you talking about? We're still up on the scoreboard, baby. Like, you know, so it's gonna be fun there. But with that being said, Gunter, he talked about how the fight went from his perspective. He's the guy that got put to sleep, and he was saying like, yo, we were fighting 1 second, and then I just woke up with guys looking down and be like, this can't be good. And it made you really think about, oh yeah, these dudes are undefeated. He's probably never been put to sleep before, to the point to where 3 guys are just looking down at him, you know, like an actual fight, because he's never lost in an actual fight. Unless he was knocked out in sparring, you know what I'm saying, then he hasn't ever experienced that. Because even if you get, you know, submitted in jiu-jitsu, it's different than being in an actual fight, throwing hands, and then waking up with people looking down. That's not the same scenario as getting put to sleep in jiu-jitsu. So if you get knocked out in sparring, maybe, but a lot of these guys haven't felt that feeling yet because they're all undefeated. So that was just a reminder, this is the season of the undefeated. So with that being said, Team Stipe, it looked like got to choose the matchup for this fight as well. They chose Kyler Phillips to fight Brad Katona. Brad Katona said he thinks Phillips is going to try and expose him on the ground, but he's ready to pick him apart and get another W for Team DC. So, going to be a great episode 2. Can't wait. This is The Ultimate Fighter Season 27, Episode 1 reaction and recap. I thought it was a good episode, and I expect them to get better and better as they go on. So, let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.